the end of the day, it's happening, it's real, you know, it's not that we're being ignorant to that, it's just being more of a case of that if you focus on that, then your focus is taking away from driving the business forward, keep pushing, keep working, you know, keep doing what you're doing, because what's happening is happening. And we are a strong industry, we've said that before. You know, I've said it before, I set my business up in a recession. It's not, you know, a lot of the businesses in our industry survive, and if not, they thrive. Can't say that word.
They thrive, and they do. And we're seeing a lot of businesses that are actually taking more money than ever, even more than some Christmases. And why is that? Because they've recentered during the pandemic, during the closure. They've worked on what was essential. They perhaps dismissed the flosses. They perhaps really looked at which are your difficult staff members. They've really looked at some structure, so it's thriving. There might be some closure around them, so suddenly they're busier with new clients, and we've seen an influx of new clients within the businesses. And I think that I was talking about this with a couple of members. Was like, oh, is gappy is the economic downturn? Oh, is gappy is this? Like, stop even thinking about that, because ultimately you're still making strong numbers, you're still profitable, you still know what your outgoings are, you still know what your ingoings are, you still know how to empower each and every one of your team, even if it's not perfect, because not every day will be. You still got it right. And if you have that language, what do the team hear? Oh, well, I'm not going to try to sell that and upsell that extra £10 treatment because
no one's got any money.
No one's got any money. Oh, they can't afford it. Oh, that's why I didn't do the target. And the more you're becoming in that wavelength of it's the economic downturn, the more the team will hear that, and they're just not going to try with the clients. So to me, that's really, really important.
You know, if we're thinking about a certain situation that we've come across ourselves, I think it's when that member of team is constantly sick, maybe because their baby's sick or their child's sick.
It's so difficult.
But
it's also to me is a lack of communication. So when you get that phone call as a salon owner saying, oh, I'm sick because my child is sick, or I can't do that because there's no one to pick up the child or whatever. You know, it's again, have we communicated between the two of us and you've got an understanding or of the situation and what's going on, or is it constant last minute changes that just warrant you having a text message, and as a salon owner you just feel really stressed, rather than if you know in advance, look, next week I'm going to have an issue because my husband is away and I need to pick up the children. You can make concessions and look around it, but when it's that last minute change constantly, that's when it becomes a little bit of a battle. That's what I'm noticing a lot more, that you constantly are having to juggle for someone's needs, and you're thinking, well, what about the business? Which is really tricky, because we are an industry predominantly of women, and ultimately how can you, and even men, I mean, we've got a few clients who have, you know, paternity rights, and they have, you know, they live far away, and one in particular, few of the team live far away from London, so they've got also their restrictions. But I think that you said it's the onboarding, the recruitment, but and being very, very clear and specific. I think if it comes to you last minute, it just doesn't have a right connotation ultimately, is it?
But at the same time, playing devil's advocate as a parent, you can't predict whether your child, you're going to get a call from the school saying your child's sick, someone needs to come and get them. You know, where does that leave you? I think as well, it's about having, I mean, that's kind of a separate issue in itself. If it's happening every week, then you need to relook at what and reassess, you know, what hours is that person working? Does it suit them to work those hours, or do you need to look at, you know, could they come in the evenings rather than the daytimes, or, you know.
But ultimately as well, you have got to focus on what is it you're trying to achieve by doing such offers, because is it the type of client that you want to attract? And it is working in some of the members that we've got, for example, it is working pretty well, but you're constantly attracting that type of client. So the new
That
client,
want the
that want the
freebie
freebie. So is that actually attracting a type of new client that you want to bring into the business? Because you're constantly devaluing what you're creating. And also there's an element of diary management, which we know since we're doing a lot of things on reception and reception training. Diary management, next thing you know, you have a full day of freebies. And that day is not profitable, which ultimately, if you do not move around all these appointments, making sure that you've got a balance somewhere. And we're seeing that a lot with laser clinics, really, where you have days where you're taking zero money because you've taken the money up front. So I'm not convinced it's actually better for the cash flow, number one, and I'm not convinced it's actually better for the team's perspective in terms of the mindset. Because she's coming in for her freebie.
Yes.
I'm not necessarily going to retail for her because I don't anyway, but that's a different topic altogether. But it's closing yourself off before you've even started, I think.
Yeah, and if you are going to do anything selling up front, then I think that you need to be very savvy about what you do with that money. You know, I think it's like one of our clients is heavily on the gift vouchers and heavily selling those, and then struggling when it comes to those being redeemed for the cash flow. And so we've chatted to them about, you know, having a pot for the gift voucher money, a separate, you know, bank savings account, whatever it may be, so that when it's coming in, you can pull it back into the business when it should be in there as such, rather than all at once. I mean, that's great to have that cash injection, but it hurts
at some point or another if you don't keep selling those packages.
That's the hygiene, the health and safety, the cleanliness. And then the other one is not allowing your team to forget that level of professionalism and etiquette in the business. And again, I see that drop quite often when over-friendliness comes in, or a client is speaking in a certain way, and as a therapist you're reflecting that. And of course you adapt to each client, but you need to remember who's around you, and that there's a certain line that you still don't cross, even if that client's sort of effing and blinding or whatever, because you get that, don't you? You do get that, but you don't need to then kind of accompany it with you.
It's hard though, isn't it? Because you've got a lot of those clients that are very familiar with you, and vice versa. So where do you stop that line in a way? But I did judging recently, and one of the comments of the mystery shopper was, you know, I wish the therapist didn't have such strong opinions. And I wonder what the conversation was that made her feel that that opinion was a little bit forced upon her. And I think that's sometimes forgotten in the art of conversation, I guess, isn't it? In terms of how do you do small talks without overpowering your opinion upon the client, really.
Yeah, or giving your life story to the client, because
I
mean,
as
much and as much as I absolutely love clients and so on, they will be nosy because they want to know about your life, who you are, what you do, where do you live, who's your boyfriend,
what's happened,
any dramas and things like that. And I think that actually, again, I always gave enough that the client was comfortable and happy, felt, you know, that I was interacting. But I certainly, you know, you certainly wouldn't say, I mean, some of the things I've heard is when you were listening, or you just catch something, you think, oh my goodness, did you really just say that? You know, like, we don't want to know what you did on Saturday night, sort of thing. I mean, that first impression is so key, and that's why we always go on about reception as well. So it's that first impression that leaves for me, that leaves a lasting feeling for the client.
But I was reading somewhere there's a I don't know if it's a quote, but they were saying that you can forgive the first impression if the rest of that customer journey is actually spot on. And you can forgive, you can see the reception is busy, or there's too many people, not very comfortable. But if after that the customer journey is really good, then you could forgive. But if across the journey you actually encounter loads of little nibbly things that not necessarily conscious of it. Sometimes you're not really conscious of it, but you kind of not feeling amazing.
And you know, again, along the journey, untidiness, cleanliness, if that isn't there. You know, I've walked into places before where the pedicure area, you can see sort of toenail clippings still there from the last person, or the wax pot is dirty, there's drips down it. I was
wax spot is one of
fastidious
those,
about
for sure.
things like that, the cleanliness, the hygiene, the dust on the skirting boards, when they lie down, if they're looking up, cobwebs. There's all those tiny that seem not so much, but actually they really do put a client off, because you want to go somewhere which is friendly, warm. Also, that's another thing. If it's too cold, I think is
that has,
you know, and no one checking if it's too cold. But you know, the warmth, the friendliness, the people, the professionalism, the cleanliness, the hygiene.
But I've worked in places where, you know, there was no investment to be done, because we were, you know, it was places that were really going down in terms. So the whole point was, I don't know, I was always a troubleshooter, you know, let's go in and try and bring it back up to life as such. And, you know, for me, before the aesthetic of the place, let's work on the team, let's work on how you function, because if the team gets it right, the customer won't necessarily notice all these little things as much, because they feel really welcome. So that's the only way I kind of could focus on, because I had no budget to invest in the new this and new that and paint or whatever. And then as it grew with the team perspective, then you can start investing, because you're making more budget. So to me, the customer journey has got to be right. How you welcome the people, how you you know, the little details of, if I'm doing my nails, you're offering me a coffee. Thank you for joining us. We really enjoy sharing our thoughts on various topics. If you have a burning question, simply comment below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button to keep up to date with each new episode.